and one of the most notable success stories in Black American business history, has filed a civil rights lawsuit against fast food giant McDonald's, exposing the company's campaign of racial discrimination and retaliation against him as a Black franchisee. We're going to talk to Herb Washington this morning. But first, let us bring on our president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis, as we discuss the morning headlines. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Good morning, Stacey, and on behalf of the Black Press of America, we're always so pleased to be with you and our publishers across the country. This is another Thursday. This is another news day. The Black Press of America, our chair, Karen Carter Richards of the Houston Forward Times, and all of our publishers from across the nation. You know, we are not only documenting Black history, making Black history, but we're advocating for freedom, justice, and equality.
Absolutely. And the headlines, Dr. Chavis: the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is headed to the House floor next week, a monumental occasion. Congresswoman Karen Bass of California and House Judiciary Committee Chair Gerald Nadler reintroduced the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021 as protest against police brutality and the lack of accountability continued. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is a bold, comprehensive approach to hold police accountable, change the culture of law enforcement, empower our communities, and build trust between law enforcement and our communities by addressing systemic racism and bias to help save lives. A big moment is forthcoming to the House floor, Dr. Chavis.
Absolutely. And we know that it's going to pass the House of Representatives. This very important legislation to stop and prevent racially motivated police brutality and the abuse of police departments across the country. But we're also hoping now we got to put pressure on the Senate. So we got to stay very vigilant. If we're ever going to get this police reform legislation passed, it's now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be obviously following that step by step as we have. You can go to blackpressusa.com to read all about this and more. Also, sad news, Marcia Bowser, the older and only sister of Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, died Wednesday morning of coronavirus-related complications. The mayor announced in a statement. Marcia Bowser was 64. She died after battling COVID-19 related pneumonia at Washington Hospital Center. Dr. Chavis, our thoughts go out to
yes, and we send our condolences to the Honorable Mayor of Washington, the Mayor of Washington, Mayor Bowser. We know that her family is in a state of grief, but listen, we send our condolences on behalf of the Black Press to Mayor Bowser, and hopefully that our prayers will help sustain her and her family through this period of bereavement.
Absolutely. And the rollover crash that seriously injured Tiger Woods outside of Los Angeles on Tuesday was an accident. Just that, an accident. There was no alcohol, no drugs involved. Investigators say they will not pursue any charges against the golfing great. The Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva said that we don't contemplate any charges whatsoever in this crash. This remains, and I quote him, an accident. An accident is not a crime. They do happen, unfortunately. As of overnight Wednesday, Tiger Woods was awake, responsive, and recovering in the hospital from major surgery. The 45-year-old golfing legend was driving shortly after 7 a.m. Pacific time Tuesday in Rancho Palos Verdes when his SUV crossed a median and veered across 2 lanes of road before hitting a curb, hitting a tree, and landing on its side in the bushes there. He remained conscious but calm. He sustained serious leg injuries, including 2 broken legs. He underwent surgery. They put a rod in his leg. It is not expected that Tiger will return to the golf course for at least a year or so, is what the prognosis is, if ever. But we learned too, Dr. Chavis, we won't count Tiger out.
That's right. You cannot count Tiger Woods out. First of all, we're very grateful. But by the grace of God, we will be reporting a different news story this morning. And thank God he was wearing his seatbelt. And I'm also grateful that the sheriff of Los Angeles County has decided there would be no charges. It was an accident. Accidents happen. And of course, there are some in the mainstream media that try to cast negative context of what happened. But these accidents happen, and we're all praying for speedy recovery. And you're right, you cannot rule out Tiger Woods. He's not out of the game yet.
Yeah, and Tiger Woods, of course, perhaps the greatest golfer in history. He has won 15 major championships, only second to Jack Nicklaus. And his pursuit of Jack Nicklaus's record will continue, I will say, because, you know, as you said, Dr. Chavis, as you amplified, we do not count Tiger Woods out. Just last April, he won the Masters. So we'll be hearing more from Tiger Woods, I'm sure. And as we go on, former Major League Baseball player Herb Washington, he's also a former college track star at Michigan State University, a community leader, and of course, a success story among Black business owners. He's filed a complaint that details how McDonald's has redlined he and other Black store owners into its least desirable locations. They withheld advantages provided to white store owners, and then, in the case of Washington, systematically dismantled his 27-store chain empire in New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, forcing him to sell 7 stores in the last 3 years. And in every case, he had to sell to white owners. We're going to talk now with Mr. Herb Washington, and he also has with him this morning his attorney. Good morning, Mr. Washington, and Mr. Kevin P. Conway.
Very good, Brother Washington. Welcome, and Attorney Conway, welcome. Just let me say, Herb, you're one of you're a living hero, not only in sports but also in business. And we want to make sure we get the word out about the mistreatment of McDonald's. It's interesting that we're at a period of time where corporate America is supposed to be strengthening its diversity and inclusion. It's supposed to be stepping up on social justice matters. So this is not only bad timing for McDonald's, but it exposes that the company needs to really change. And if if McDonald's can't treat its own African-American owners and franchisees of McDonald's better, then that really tells you something about the company itself.
Yeah. Absolutely, Dr. Chavis and Stacy. Thanks for having us this morning. We are very appreciative of having this venue and this opportunity to continue to get the word out. Dr. Chavis, as you know, you've been in this struggle for many, many years. You know, this is quite a step to take on a behemoth of a giant like McDonald's. And you know, it isn't just about Herb Washington, the Black franchisee. We must also think about the Black employees, the ones that are there currently working and the ones who have left. As you are aware, there's over 60 ex-McDonald's Black owners that filed a lawsuit initially. There's 2 Black females that have filed a lawsuit. There are another 2 brothers that's filed a lawsuit. Myself and some employees have filed a lawsuit. And at the crust of the lawsuit is the 2-tier system that McDonald's has allowed to exist since its inception, that allows for white owner-operators to flourish while Black operators oftentimes are down a path of demise. The rents are higher for Black operators. Our sales are lower. Our cash flow is lower. We're relegated in many cases to inner city locations that are more expensive to operate, less cash flow, and can be extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. I can think of a number of different operators who have had to carry guns to work in their restaurants to feel safe, or have had people killed in their McDonald's restaurant. Okay? I, for one, had that situation. I never heard from the CEO of McDonald's when that happened. Mm-hmm. So these are the kinds of things that I am standing up, and I just can't take it anymore. 40 years in
systemic racism.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Conway, Mr. Conway, what has been, I know you can't go into specific details, but what has been some of your discussions with McDonald's on behalf of your client? What's their reaction to this?
Well, discussions directly with McDonald's, we're all ears. We'd be happy to hear from them. But so far, what we've seen is McDonald's take some shots at Herb in the press and completely ignore his claims of racial discrimination and systemic racism, not address whatsoever the two-tier system, not address our admitted, McDonald's admitted in 1996 to its racial steering policies. It has been making promises ever since to create parity. Just last week, Chris Kay, the CEO of McDonald's, put out another statement doubling down to promise and aspire. We don't need promises and aspirations. We need action and change.
Yeah, absolutely. And Herb, is it somewhat of a surprise? I know that you're not the type to use your celebrity, throw your celebrity around, but is it a surprise that McDonald's would do something like this, knowing your history, knowing that, you know, great Major League Baseball player, track star, very prominent individual?
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. Given your celebrity, are you surprised McDonald's has taken such a public position and has done this to you?
Has McDonald's done this to me?
Yeah, I'm asking her. I'm sorry we're having a bad connection, but I'm asking, giving your celebrity, are you surprised that McDonald's has been so public in doing this to you?
No, I'm not surprised. And here's why, Stacey, I'm not surprised. You know, when you speak up against a system that has been allowed to exist and from the outside looks very wholesome and looks fair for everyone, McDonald's and large corporations want to silence you. That's the history of the US, especially when a Black man speaks up, because we're supposed to take it. We're supposed to take what we have. And I've done that in lower volume restaurants. And in spite of the difficulties, the road that I had to carry, I've been able to manage a certain degree of success. So no, I'm not surprised. Anytime you go against the establishment, they want to try to silence you. But the success that I've had, at one point being the largest Black McDonald's owner in the country, imagine where I would have been had I been white and given and afforded the same accommodations my white colleagues had been given. Imagine if most of my restaurants had been in the suburbs as opposed to in the inner city. What my success might have been, what my legacy to pass on to my son who is being denied an opportunity to buy restaurants from me. You know, we're about first generation. How about generational wealth? McDonald's is trying to stifle that from me. I want my son to be successful, my grandkids to be successful. I put in 40 years. I don't want to watch. I don't want a pat on the back. And been engaged in the community every single day.
Yeah. And go ahead, Dr. Chavis.
Yes, and I just want to say to Herb Washington that you're talking to the right press association, the National Association, the National Publishers Association, the National Newspaper Publishers Association. Hiram Jackson is one of our leading publishers. You know him well. And please give our best wishes to Bill Picard. And I know he's one of your stronger backers. But one of the things I wanted to say to you, Herb, is that generational wealth. Most of our publications in the NMPA are first, second, and third generation publishers. And you mentioned how you want your legacy and your family to continue your great pioneering as the McDonald's operator, franchisee owner. certainly that is so important for all of our families. So it's not only for your family, Herb, but all families ought to be thinking about long-term business engagement, long-term business development. And so that's why this suit that you filed against McDonald's is so important. And we in the Black Press, we pledge to you, we're going to support you and follow this case as it unfolds.
I thank you, Dr. Chavis. I appreciate the support, need the support so that we can be successful. Because this is a fight that we all must fight on a number of different fronts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we will.
Thanks, Dr. Chavis. We couldn't be more grateful for your support in this fight, and we definitely would love to avail ourselves to continue to provide you with updates as we move forward. You know, as Herb was picking up to start saying, we're all fighting, you know, a common enemy right now, and that's, you know, systemic racism. And it's systemic racism that's woven into the fabric of the last vestige of power, the corporate boardroom. You know, as Herb and I have talked so many times, I said, you know, this is the last battleground where the last stronghold of power until a black man, a black woman can be an equal on the street and in the C-suite. You know, we still got fighting to do. And, you know, we're in this for the long haul, and we want absolute corporate change in their practices and policies. And we want accountability for all the people that they've wronged along the way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for representing Brother Washington and all the other persons that have been discriminated against by McDonald's. I think, as we say in the civil rights movement, you have to have a legal strategy and also an extra legal strategy. What I mean by extra legal, the support base, so that we build a momentum in the communities in which we serve. At the same time, you do the great work as a litigator in the court. I think these civil lawsuits sometimes can be stretched out for a long time. So we're hoping that McDonald's responds, and that, you know, if any corporation ought to be treating black business owners the best, it ought to be McDonald's, given all the consumership. African Americans spend millions, hundreds of millions of dollars every year with the McDonald's franchise. And to hear that they're now discriminating against and racially profiling negatively from a business perspective, African Americans at McDonald's, that's just terrible. And we need to rectify it, and we need to rectify it sooner, not later.
If I may, Dr. Chavis, you know, one thing that I want the public to know is that under this current administration that you know, runs McDonald's today, at one point there was 300 and approximately 80 black McDonald owners. Today the number is 186. There was 42 black executives. Today I think it's 8.
Wow. Yeah, those statistics really tell the truth.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And so I would say also, as you talked about, you know, support, my concerns certainly are retaliation, you know, for speaking out, you know, from McDonald's, because they don't like me being on shows like yours, continuing to get the message out along with my attorney. They don't like that. So there has to be a groundswell of support for this injustice, not just for me and McDonald's, but anyone sitting in any cubicle, working anywhere where there has been injustice, systemic injustice. We have to fight that. You fought that all your life, Dr. Chavis. I've seen it. I've supported you. This is America. If we're going to make America great, then all people must have a fair opportunity, and that opportunity must be measurable. There can't be black McDonald's and white McDonald's, black America and white America. It is America, and it's time to make it great for all people.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to make sure we're going to continue to speak out. One of the things we learned from the civil rights movement that's still active today is that our voices, when we protest, when we speak out, when we stand up, we must do it together. We must have solidarity together. So on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we pledge to you publicly our solidarity and our support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And Herb, you mentioned others and support. Speaking of support, what kind of support are you receiving from the community and from others?
Kevin, you want to speak to that?
It's every single day that we are getting reached out to by other members in this fight against McDonald's. They were getting reached out to by white operators, black operators, ex-operators. We're just getting reached out to members of the community that Herb has lived in over his life. We're getting reached out to by people in Rochester that had stories of Herb taking care of them while he was there. We're getting reached out to in Youngstown, Ohio, by people that Herb has supported in the community. We're getting reached out to by people. We did an interview, and a woman had wrote a story about Herb, and there was somebody that had impacted him so much in Canada that he just needed to keep me posted, and I'll do whatever I can to support him. So we've gotten such a strong.
Yeah, we have. I'm sorry, Mr. Conway. We have to apologize. We're trying to detect where that sound is coming from.
Well, I'm sure that there may be some folks out there trying to hack the program because they don't want to hear what Herb Washington and Attorney Conway is saying. There's some intruders, but look, we're going to get this word out. And one thing about you can't hack the black press, you can't silence the black press, you can't make us shut up, and you can create all the noise in the background. We're going to continue to broadcast, and we're going to stand and expose this systemic racism at McDonald's.
Amen.
Yeah, and with that said, Herb, Mr. Conway, any last thoughts on this that you want our viewers and our readers and our subscribers to take away from?
I would say this to anyone who can hear and see us this morning is don't get hoodwinked by McDonald's. Here's what McDonald's is going to do, and I'll be real quick. McDonald's doesn't want to speak to the issues I've raised. McDonald's playbook is to talk about Herb Washington personally. That's not what it is about. I couldn't be in McDonald's 40 years if I was a bad player. You don't keep anybody around that long. That's where McDonald's wants to go. McDonald's does not want to talk about systemic racism and how they're going to fix it. That's my comment.
Mr. Conway?
Yeah, I think this is the appropriate audience specifically to think about what Herb was saying and take that a step further. It's really ironic that McDonald's responded with a corporate message last week that quoted Dr. King twice. And it took the civil unrest of Dr. King's career for them to even allow black operators into the system. And this recent regime at McDonald's that is putting out these solidarity statements, the cash flow between black and white operators has tripled. The number of black operators in the system has been cut in half. The number of black executives dropped from 42 to 7. So just remember, like Herb said, don't be hoodwinked. The numbers don't lie.
Yeah, I like the comment that James Wright of the Washington Informer, he says McDonald's doesn't deserve a break today. Bobby Henry notes that noise is only a motivation for us to march on till victory is won. And our executive administrator, Claudette Perry, reminds us that the black press gets hacked more than 24,000 times a day. And understand, we've been around 194 years since before the end of slavery. So as Mr. Washington has eloquently stated, Dr. Chavis has been through this all his life. We're good with it. We're going to have you guys back at another time. Make sure that this message is amplified. Dr. Tavis, your last thoughts?
Yes, freedom is a constant struggle, a luta continua. And I think that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it best. An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So an injustice in McDonald's is a threat to justice, not only at all the McDonald's operators and owners, but also to other African-American owned businesses and to people of color. And as Herb has rightly said, to all of America. So this is something with a sense of urgency that we need to make sure that we put the pressure on McDonald's. And I know that they think that this is going to just go away or it may fade away. But Herb, we're going to continue to put pressure on them, not only with this morning's broadcast, but you're going to see the power of the black press in response to McDonald's. We're not going to let them get away with this. And I hope that some executives of McDonald's that you are listening, you're probably one typing in the background. But what I'm just saying is that be on notice. The black press is aware of your discrimination against Herb Washington and others, and we're going to expose you. We're going to pull the sheets off of the systemic racists in McDonald's.
Our Black History Month remembrance. Hey, in honor of Herb Washington, we remember Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. He was born in Cairo, Georgia in 1919 to a family of sharecroppers. His mother, Maylie Robinson, single-handedly raised Jackie and her 4 children. They were the only black family on their block, and the prejudice they encountered only strengthened their bond. From this humble beginning would grow the first baseball player to break Major League Baseball's color barrier that segregated the sport for more than 50 years. Growing up in a large single-parent family, Jackie excelled early at all sports, and he learned to make his own way in life. He went to UCLA and became the first athlete to win varsity letters in 4 sports: baseball, basketball, football, and track. In 1941, he was named to the All-American football team. Due to financial difficulties, he was forced to leave college and eventually decided to enlist in the U.S. Army. After 2 years in the Army, he progressed to second lieutenant. Jackie's Army career was cut short when he was court-martialed in relation to his objections with incidents of racial discrimination. In the end, Jackie left the Army with an honorable discharge. In 1945, Jackie played 1 season in the Negro Baseball Leagues, traveling all over the Midwest with the Kansas City Monarchs. But greater challenges and achievements were in store for him. In 1947, Brooklyn Dodgers president Branch Rickey approached Jackie about joining the Brooklyn Dodgers. When Jackie first put on a Brooklyn Dodger uniform, he pioneered the integration of professional athletes in America. By breaking the color barrier in baseball, the nation's preeminent sport, he courageously challenged the deeply rooted custom of racial segregation in both the North and the South. Jackie went on to win a World Series, Rookie of the Year, and so many other awards. He is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let it be known, never let your head hang down. Never give up and sit down and grieve. Let's find another way. We will see you tomorrow.